Interesting how the people who claim to love you the most are often the first ones to drag you into the darkest moments of your life. I never expected my own family to corner me in a bankruptcy court, smiling as if they'd finally found the perfect way to break me. They thought I was weak, drowning, defenseless. They had no idea the company they'd spent years dismissing had already grown far beyond anything they imagined. And when the judge really looked at me, and recognized my company's name, everything shifted. Their plan shattered in seconds. My name is Robin, and if you had asked me 5 years ago whether my family would ever try to financially destroy me, I would have laughed. I genuinely believed we were imperfect but functional, like most families. We argued, sure. We disagreed, absolutely. But betrayal? Courtroom battles? Watching them attempt to rip apart everything I had worked for? That was a version of reality I wasn't prepared for. My story doesn't begin in a courtroom, though. It begins in a cramped garage behind my old apartment, a space that smelled like dust, coffee, and late nights spent fighting to turn a small idea into a real company. I remember sitting on the cold concrete floor with my laptop propped on a stack of boxes, designing the first prototype for what would eventually become Boltstream, my logistics optimization software that would later pick up serious traction in the shipping and warehouse world. Back then, Boltstream was just a dream I was coding at midnight after getting home from my day job. Nobody believed in it. Nobody believed in me. Especially not my family. My mom used to say, "You can't build a future by staring at screens all day, Robin. That's not a real business." My dad chimed in whenever he got the chance, "Why don't you get a stable government job like your cousins? At least then you won't embarrass us." Embarrass them. That word stuck with me. As if my dreams were a burden they had to carry. My siblings weren't any better. My older brother, Leo, was the golden child, every mistake forgiven, every failure reframed as a valuable learning experience. Meanwhile, if I so much as mentioned my project, I'd hear something like, "Still playing with that fake tech business?" Or, "Let me guess, you're going to be the next billionaire, right?" Said with the kind of smirk that cuts deeper than they realize. But here's the thing about being underestimated, it becomes fuel. Every insult made me code longer. Every dismissive laugh made me work harder. And every time they said I'd fail, I learned something new just to prove I wouldn't. I didn't start Boltstream with investors, mentors, or capital. I started it with stubbornness, an aging laptop that overheated every 15 minutes, and a belief that if I didn't build my own future, nobody would build one for me. 3 years passed. Slow, painful, chaotic years. But one morning, everything changed. A mid-sized shipping company used my software during a trial period and emailed me saying, "Your system cut our processing time by 42% in a single week. Call us." That one message triggered everything that came next. Suddenly, Boltstream wasn't a hobby. It was a company. A real one. Clients began signing on. Not thousands, but enough to turn my life around. Enough to make Boltstream profitable. Enough to place me on a few local business panels. Enough for people to start noticing. But you want to know who didn't notice? My family. Not until they realized I was making money. Money became the magnet that pulled them in fast, aggressively, and with the kind of entitlement that feels like a vacuum sucking the air out of a room. It started small. "Robin, we're short on rent this month." Then bigger. "Robin, your dad needs a temporary loan." And finally outrageous. "Robin, you should invest in Leo's shop idea. He deserves a chance too." It wasn't "could you?" It was always "you should." As if my success belonged to everyone but me. I tried to set boundaries, gently at first, then firmly. But boundaries to them were insults. How dare I say no? How dare I withhold money from my own family? And that's when things took a turn I never expected. That's when the betrayal truly began. The shift was subtle at first, cold shoulders, shorter replies, the kind of stiff politeness people use when they're offended but won't say why. I thought maybe they were stressed or going through something privately. I didn't want to assume the worst. But then I overheard a conversation that should have warned me of everything to come. It was at a family dinner I had reluctantly agreed to attend. I stepped outside to take a call from a client, and when I returned to the hallway behind the dining room, I heard Leo speaking in a low voice. She thinks she's too good for us. All that money she owes us. Owes. As if my years of struggle were a debt they paid. My mother whispered back, she should help the family. If she won't, then she deserves what's coming. I should have walked away. I should have confronted them. But I froze, unable to process what what's coming meant. I learned later. And it hit harder than I ever imagined. Because when people feel entitled to your success, any boundary feels like betrayal to them. And betrayal, in their minds, demands punishment. So they decided to punish me. They decided to drag me into the one place they knew would cause maximum humiliation, a bankruptcy court. Even though I wasn't bankrupt. Even though everything they filed was built on lies. They wanted to destroy me, and they thought they'd get away with it. I found out about the bankruptcy filing through a letter shoved into my mailbox on a Tuesday morning. A thick envelope, heavy with legal paperwork, stamped with the county seal. I thought it was a mistake at first, maybe misdelivered mail. But the moment I opened it, my stomach flipped so violently it felt like the floor dropped beneath me. Petition for involuntary bankruptcy. Filed by Leo Fisher, Margaret Fisher, Daniel Fisher. My brother. My mother. My father. My own family. I remember standing on my porch, fingers shaking as I read line after line of accusations so absurd they bordered on fiction. According to the petition, I was recklessly running my company at a substantial loss, endangering family investments, hiding funds, refusing to repay debts, and failing to meet financial obligations. I laughed at first, an empty, disbelieving laugh. Then came anger. Then something deeper, heartbreak. I hadn't borrowed a single dollar from them. Not one. I hadn't used their money. I hadn't asked for their help. These claims weren't misunderstandings, they were calculated lies. I called Leo immediately. He picked up with a smug tone that almost made me drop the phone. You got the papers? Good. Good. I snapped. What the hell did you do? You brought this on yourself, Robin. You want to act like you're better than us? Fine. But you're not taking everything and leaving us behind. Leaving you behind? I repeated. I owe you nothing. He scoffed. We'll see what the judge says. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. My lawyer, Mira, was just as stunned when she reviewed the documents. They're alleging you owe them nearly $200,000, she said, flipping through the petition. Do you? Absolutely not. Do they have proof? No. She sighed. Then they're bluffing. But they're also dangerous. Dangerous. That word settled over me like a cold fog. Because Mira was right, people don't file involuntary bankruptcy out of irritation or pettiness. They do it out of desperation, entitlement, or revenge. And my family had a potent mix of all three. The next few weeks were hell. Every day felt like walking through a fog of stress so thick it clung to my skin. Even while running Boltstream, I couldn't focus. What if the judge believed them? What if this turned into a months-long legal nightmare? What if investors pulled out? Involuntary bankruptcy can ruin reputations, even when false. That's what they wanted. To stain my name. To control my narrative. To make me kneel. When the court date finally arrived, it felt surreal standing in front of the courthouse doors. The building was tall and cold, intimidating, much like the people waiting inside. I spotted my family the moment I walked through security. They weren't scared. They weren't ashamed. They were smirking. My mother whispered something to my father, and they both laughed quietly, shaking their heads like they were the victims, like this entire situation was somehow my fault. Leo didn't bother looking at me. He stood with his arms crossed, jaw clenched, eyes sharp with triumph. They were convinced they had already won. They were convinced they would walk out of that courtroom with my company, my money, and what they believed they deserved. That's when Mira leaned toward me and said something I'll never forget. Robin, don't panic. The judge assigned to this case is someone who pays attention to details. If your company is as reputable as you say, this may not go the way your family expects. I didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. But I would. In the most unexpected way possible. The clerk finally called our case, and walking into that courtroom felt like stepping onto a stage I never auditioned for. The fluorescent lights hummed. The air smelled like old paper and polished wood. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it echo in my ears. My family sat to the left, all together, forming a wall of judgmental eyes and stiff posture. I took my seat next to Mira, trying to steady my breathing. Then the judge walked in. Judge Halvorsen. A man in his early 60s, stern but calm, the kind of person whose presence instantly silenced a room. He adjusted his glasses, scanned the paperwork in front of him, and then paused. I didn't understand why. He looked at the petition, my family's lies, then at the response filed by Mira, and then he looked directly at me. Not a glance. A look. Like something clicked in his mind. He tilted his head ever so slightly and said, "Ms. Fisher, are you the founder of Boltstream?" My family's heads snapped toward me so fast I heard Leo's neck crack. I swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. The courtroom shifted. Something changed in the air. The judge leaned back slowly. Interesting. My family's smug expressions flickered. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the smallest spark of hope. Judge Halvorsen tapped his pen against the stack of papers, his expression unreadable. Boltstream, he repeated, almost thoughtfully. I've seen your company's name before. My heart thudded. Leo frowned. Your Honor, we're here to address Robin's irresponsible behavior, not. Mr. Fisher, the judge cut him off, voice firm. I am speaking. Leo's mouth snapped shut. Mira suppressed a smile beside me. The judge continued, before reviewing this petition, I oversaw a logistics infrastructure case last month. One of the expert reports referenced software credited to Boltstream. He looked at me again. A highly efficient system, if I recall correctly. My mother blinked rapidly. Well, Your Honor, Robin exaggerates her accomplishments. She's always been dramatic. I stayed silent. Because this moment wasn't mine to control. It was unraveling all on its own. The judge shifted his attention to the petition. According to this filing, you claim Ms. Fisher has defaulted on substantial loans taken from family members, totaling $192,000? My father nodded. Yes, Your Honor. We loaned her money to start her business. She refused to pay us back. I felt rage ignite in my chest. I had never taken a single dollar from them. Not for my business. Not for anything. The judge raised an eyebrow. Do you have documentation for these loans? Silence. My father glanced at Leo. Leo glanced at my mother. My mother forced a shaky smile. It was an informal understanding within the family. Mira pounced. Your Honor, we request immediate dismissal based on lack of evidence, malicious intent, and clear abuse of the involuntary bankruptcy process. My father sputtered, she's lying. She owes us. The judge exhaled sharply. Mr. Fisher, involuntary bankruptcy is not a tool for settling personal grudges. It is a serious legal mechanism requiring concrete proof. He tapped the petition again. Which, so far, is entirely absent. Leo slammed his fist on the table. She has money and refuses to help us. We're her family. There it was. The sentence that revealed everything. Their motive. Their entitlement. Their belief that my success belonged to them by default. The judge's expression hardened. This court does not oversee emotional disputes. If your issue is jealousy, resentment, or expectation of financial support, you are in the wrong place. I couldn't stop the tiny gasp that escaped me. Mira placed a hand over mine under the table, squeezing gently, a silent "we've got this." But my family wasn't done humiliating themselves. My mother stood abruptly. Your Honor, our daughter is selfish. She built this company and didn't include us. She barely visits. She acts like she's better than us. I wanted to shrink into the floor. The judge blinked at her in disbelief. Ma'am, are you suggesting that because your adult daughter is financially successful, she owes you legal compensation? She owes us gratitude, my mother cried. She owes us respect. She owes us opportunity, Leo added, standing beside her. My father chimed in, pointing at me. Everything she has came from us. I stared at them, all of them, feeling the final thread inside me snap. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a family that simply felt hurt. This was greed. Pure, unfiltered entitlement. The judge's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Enough. The room fell silent. And then he looked at me again, this time with something almost like recognition? Not personal recognition. Professional recognition. Respect. Miss Fisher, he said, I reviewed your financial statements. Boltstream is profitable. Very profitable. There is no evidence of financial distress. My family stiffened. The judge continued, in fact, from what I've seen, your company is developing rapidly. Which raises a question. He turned slowly back toward my family. Why are you so determined to force her into bankruptcy? My family shifted uncomfortably under the judge's stare. Leo opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, searching for a lie that sounded believable. My father finally said, we're just trying to protect her from making more mistakes. The judge's brows lifted. By declaring her bankrupt? My mother wrung her hands dramatically. We thought it would teach her responsibility. Responsibility, the judge repeated flatly. By legally sabotaging her? Leo blurted, she didn't give us equity in her company. Ah. There it was. The truth, raw and unfiltered. Judge Halvorson slowly set his pen down. This petition is not about debt. It is about resentment. Jealousy. Expectation without merit. My family stood there exposed, like a spotlight was burning through every layer of their excuses. The judge continued, Miss Fisher is not obligated to surrender her company, or her success, to you. Unless you can provide evidence proving a legitimate legal debt. He paused. This petition is not only baseless, it is malicious. My mother's face drained of color. Leo's fists clenched. My father muttered something under his breath. And then the judge looked directly at me again, his expression softening just slightly. I can assure you, Miss Fisher, this will not stand. And for the first time in my life, someone in authority saw the truth before I even explained it. The tension in the courtroom thickened, settling into an uneasy silence broken only by the rustle of papers. My family's attorney, an older man who looked increasingly uncomfortable, cleared his throat and attempted damage control. Your Honor, he began, perhaps we should evaluate the petition line by line. The Fishers were under the impression. The judge held up a hand. Sir, unless you have concrete documentation proving your clients ever loaned Ms. Fisher money, there is nothing to evaluate. The attorney glanced helplessly at my family. Do we have documentation? Leo snapped, it was verbal. Families don't sign contracts. The judge's jaw tightened. In this courtroom, they do. My mother stepped forward slightly. Your Honor, Robin promised she'd always help us if she became successful. That's a verbal agreement. Heat flared in my chest. I never said that, I replied calmly. I said if I ever could help, I would. But not at the cost of my company. Not like this. My father scoffed. Same thing. It is not the same thing, the judge said sharply. And even if she made such a statement in passing, it is not a legally binding loan agreement. Leo crossed his arms and smirked. So what? She walks free? She doesn't owe us anything? The judge leaned forward. That is correct. My family erupted. My mother gasped dramatically. My father muttered curses under his breath. Leo slammed his hand against the table. She owes us everything, he yelled. We raised her. We fed her. We supported her. Leo, I said quietly, you mocked me every step of the way. You laughed at Boltstream. You said it was a joke. So what, he spat. You still wouldn't have a career without us. My voice was steady when I replied. I built my success despite you. Not because of you. The judge let the silence settle for a moment. Then he spoke. Mr. Fisher, he said to Leo, involuntary bankruptcy is meant for dire circumstances, creditors who are genuinely owed substantial sums. It is not a weapon for punishing family members who choose independence. Leo glared at him. We're not punishing her. We're trying to get what we deserve. The judge crossed his arms. And what exactly do you believe you deserve? My mother stepped closer to the bench, desperation leaking into her tone. She should share her company with us. She's young. She doesn't understand real life. We deserve a stake, something to secure our future. I stared at her, speechless. The judge looked genuinely offended. Your daughter built a legitimate business from the ground up. A profitable, respected one. And you believe you are entitled to her company simply because you are related? My mother nodded without hesitation. Yes. That's how family works. No, the judge said firmly. That is how manipulation works. The courtroom fell silent. The judge flipped through the papers one more time and then pushed them away as though the entire petition was trash, because it was. Effective immediately, he said, this petition is dismissed. My breath caught. And furthermore, he continued, I am considering imposing sanctions for filing in bad faith. This court does not tolerate misuse of legal systems for personal vendettas. Leo exploded. This is unfair. She's stealing from us. Enough, the judge said with finality. But Leo wasn't listening. He rounded on me with pure fury. You owe us. You can't turn your back on your family. My voice shook, not from fear, but from the kind of heartbreak that comes from realizing something irreversible. I didn't turn my back on you. You pushed me away the moment you tried to destroy everything I built. My mother sobbed. My father stared coldly. Leo looked like he wanted to throw something across the room. But I stayed standing. Because this time, I wasn't the one on trial. The judge delivered his final statement with a tone that made the entire courtroom fall still again. Miss Fisher, he said, turning to me, your company's reputation precedes you. Boltstream has been referenced in multiple cases for its efficiency and innovation. I commend your work. My throat tightened. Thank you, Your Honor. Then he shifted his gaze toward my family. His expression hardened into something cold and uncompromising. And as for the petitioners, I strongly advise you to reconsider your understanding of family, responsibility, and entitlement. Your daughter is not your property. Her success is not a debt you are owed. And any further attempts to misuse this court will be met with severe consequences. My family was silent, humiliated, defeated, exposed. The judge stood. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck. And just like that, it was over. My knees nearly buckled with relief. Mira steadied me with a gentle hand. You did great, she whispered. But as I walked past my family toward the exit, none of them could look me in the eyes. They had come here to break me. Instead, they broke themselves. Walking out of that courtroom felt like stepping into a different world, a world where the truth had finally spoken louder than my family's entitlement. But the story didn't end at the courthouse doors. Because justice came in more ways than one. Outside the courthouse, the air was brisk, almost cleansing. Mira walked beside me, flipping through her notes. You know, she said, if you wanted to pursue sanctions, you'd be entirely justified. What they did was abusive and reckless. I looked back at the courthouse entrance, where my family lingered like shadows clinging to a wall. My mother looked shell-shocked. Leo paced angrily. My father avoided everyone's eyes. Part of me ached. Part of me wanted to cry. But another part of me, one I had ignored for years, finally felt free. What would sanctions do? I asked. Financial penalties. Possible legal repercussions. Maybe even damage to their credit or ability to file again. I thought about it for a long moment. Let's file them. Mira nodded as if she expected that answer. It wasn't revenge out of spite. It was closure. A boundary enforced by law. And from that moment forward, the tone of my life shifted. A week later, the fallout began. I received a call from a local business reporter. Somehow, word of the bogus bankruptcy filing had gotten out, not the details, just the fact that an involuntary petition had been dismissed against Boltstream with strong remarks from the judge. Care to comment? The reporter asked. Yes, I said. And I gave a simple, firm statement. This was an attempt to harm my business through false claims. The court saw the truth. I didn't mention my family. I didn't shame them publicly. I didn't need to. The courts did it for me. And then came the sanctions hearing. My family sat 3 rows ahead, stiff and silent, as the judge ruled that they had filed the petition in bad faith. The consequences weren't devastating, but they were enough to sting. A hefty fine for legal abuse. Mandatory reimbursement of my legal fees. A formal notation of misconduct in the case record. A warning that any further attempts could lead to more serious legal consequences. Leo shot me a murderous glare afterward. My mother cried. My father's face turned gray with humiliation. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt done. Completely done. A few days later, my brother showed up at my office. He barged in without an appointment, red-faced and shaking. "How could you do this to us?" he demanded. I didn't even stand. "Leo, you dragged me into bankruptcy court. You tried to destroy me." He scoffed. "It wasn't that serious." "You tried to take my company," I said, voice calm but firm. "You tried to strip me of everything I built." "You should have shared it," he snapped. "You owe us after everything we did for you." I met his glare evenly. "I don't owe you anything. And after what you did, you don't even deserve a place in my life." For a moment, I thought he might lash out physically. But instead, he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the glass shook. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. That was the last conversation I had with him. 2 months passed without contact. In that silence, something incredible happened. Boltstream grew faster than ever. We secured a major government contract. We expanded into new markets. We doubled our engineering team. And the weight that had sat on my chest for years, my family's expectations, guilt, manipulation, finally lifted. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. Then one afternoon, as I packed up my office, Mira walked in and said, "You know, Robin, I think this chapter was necessary." "Necessary?" I asked. She smiled softly. "Sometimes, people have to reveal who they really are so you can finally walk away." I nodded, feeling the truth settle inside me. Because she was right. My family didn't destroy me in that courtroom. They revealed themselves. And in doing so, they freed me. Months later, I got a letter from Judge Halvorson. A personal note. He congratulated me on Boltstream's growth, acknowledged the challenges I faced, and encouraged me to keep building boldly. It was simple. Unexpected. But deeply meaningful. He closed with a line I will never forget. "Some families lift you. Some anchor you. You are wise to know the difference." And that's when I realized. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply succeeding where they wanted you to fall. If you've ever had someone try to take credit for your success, or tear you down when you finally found your strength, then you know exactly how this story feels. Some people don't want to grow with you. They want to grow through you. But the moment you choose your own peace, everything changes. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support reminds me why these stories matter. Until next time, stay strong, stay aware, and protect your peace.